Another project for my brother-in-law's 28-foot aluminum boat. It's a custom-made aluminum hull boat. So the problem is with the mounting system for the batteries. There are 3 of them. I don't know if you can see the other one over there, but there are 3 batteries, and the mounting system has a bracket that goes along the top over these plastic covers. And there's one down at the bottom over here and another one at the bottom over here. This one is mostly accessible. You can see it down below. The one over here, not readily so, and so we're going to do something to make it easier to get to, because the batteries need to be replaced every few years, especially since it bakes here in the California sun. Now he does have a shade over it at all times, but it still gets well over 100 out here, and in this battery compartment much higher than that. So that's what we'll be working on. So one of the brackets mounts on this side, but we want to make the bottom section threaded. So I've got some stainless steel that's going to fit underneath here, but I need to know that thickness and the position. So what I've got here is 2 pieces of 2x4, cut them at a 5-degree angle on the chop saw, and then reverse them. So only one side's sloped, one side's flat. So they're basically an adjustable parallel. So in here, they got to be outside the weld bead, which is kind of sticking out here. I just slide the bottom one past the top one, and I'll get my thickness. I also can mark positions of the hole and the outside edges. There's a charger cable here. So this is the right side. And I'll just flip this wedge over and use the same thing on the other side and measure the height of that one and the position of that one on the other side of the wood here. Alrighty, so we got the positive terminals in the bag. We pulled the battery out. They're just sitting there. Hopefully they won't touch any of the outside here. Plus, hopefully they're de-energized, because I've got the switch off, but I'm not certain. So just to be safe, I've got them in a bag. I've got the wedges flipped upside down on this side, and we're going to mark this off and measure the height. There were 2 holes because he couldn't get to this inside one. It was too hard to get to and get the nut in. So he made an outside hole. We're going to use that one. So we're going to measure this height, and we're going to mark off around here. Okay, I don't know if you can see this. I'm marking off around the periphery here, so I know dimensions roughly. And I'll measure that height. Alright, so here's my piece of stainless. It's 304 stainless. It's not quite 1.5 by 1.5. It's very odd dimensions. So here's the 2 pieces with my measurements on them. A little bit hard to read there. That's both sides of either side of the wedge, so they were pushed together something like this in parallel. Anyways, those are my 2 pieces, and we're going to cut this in half and make 2 pieces with a threaded and tapped hole that match. We had to adjust the heights of these, and the thickness of the 2 sides are not the same, probably because it's very roughly welded together. So it takes over the bandsaw next. Alright, so we're just going to cut this guy in half. I'm not holding much, but it should stay in place. Set pretty slow based on this chart which came with the saw. 304 stainless to the very top there, 80 to 120 surface feet per minute. So we're making really good progress. So I've got both stainless steel blocks in the vise here, and they're 2 different thicknesses. We're going to cut them to thickness. So we're going to make them both the larger thickness first, and then we'll take one down to the final thickness. So they're 1.46 and we're shooting for 1.315. What's that? Yes, they are. Alright, so one of these 2 is 4/10 over. We're going to leave it because you can just hammer it under the aluminum piece and it'll be fine. That's this one. We're going to take this one down to the final dimension which is 0.29, 1.220, so another 100 thousandths have to come off almost exactly. It's a lot of difference between the two sides. Alright, so next we're going to find our back, the fixed jaw position. We're going to get our DRO to set 0 on that. And then here's one of the pieces. Alright, so here's my thinking. This is where the battery was, because this was the part I traced around the outside of the angle bracket. So I measured this on both, and it's a little over 0.5 on both. One's bigger than the other. So I'm going to go 450 thousandths in. That way, when this part pushes in, it won't touch the battery, because on the base of it, where the angle bracket is mounted, you know, there's an inconsistent weld bead that goes across there. So instead, we're just going to drill these guys at 450 and leave a little slot. As far as finding my center, it's not critical again. Part of this material is going to be sticking out past the end of the battery flange. It just provides a good flat land. So finding my center is very rough. I'm 450 thousandths from this jaw face, and there's a bunch of horrible burrs sticking out over the edge here. So I just used the ruler to find my rough center. This is a wonderfully miserable stainless. So we need to slow these RPMs way, way down. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll go back here. So we're around 200 RPM. Hard, nasty material. And we're through. That was a bit painful. Alright, so I have my two parts loaded up in the vise near my power tapper. And I've got the settings. I've slowed the tapping speed down a little bit because of the stainless steel. These are only going to be 50% thread, so they shouldn't have too much resistance going in. We're going to go reasonably deep. I don't think I'm going to go all the way through. And here's the two parts. I've chamfered them and they're ready to go. So we got the tapper on manual. We'll just see what seems reasonable. We'll see what the resistance is going to be like. Not really a problem at all. Going for the 50% threads is a good choice because that's not struggling even a little bit. Can't tell you how much this has made my life easier, this power tapper. By the way, if I wanted to match depths, when you're tapping, the power tapper shows you what the depth is in millimeters. So I could have duplicated this very closely if I wanted to, because the servo motor keeps good track of the actual position of the motor. And we're done. So here's some 3/8-16 rod made out of 316 stainless for corrosion resistance. I'm just going to cut off two pieces, 13 inches long, that'll thread in those bottom blocks that are underneath the angle bracket. Just kind of a coarse blade for this. Alright, so here's the two pieces that fit under the L brackets. I've labeled them direction of battery and which side they go on. This one goes on the left, this one goes on the right, towards the battery. And these guys, these threaded rods, 316 stainless, screw into here. This gets epoxied under the aluminum angle. And then these, there's a crossbar we don't have the piece because we don't know the exact length of yet. So these guys thread down and push down on the crossbar. It's going to be an aluminum crossbar going across all three batteries, and you'll tighten it to get a little bit of flex. And that's it. Should be good to go. Right, so here's the bars with the blocks in place, test fitted. Here's one. Here's the one that's really hard to get to. But as long as you don't have to take the bars out or the threaded rods out with the battery in place, if you can put the battery in with that in place, there's no reason really to epoxy them because you'll never have to worry about it. So I think that's where we're going to go for starters. We're just going to leave them loose because they only rotate a little bit before they lock up. and you should be able to tighten everything just fine. Here we are installed. Looking back towards the other direction. This will make for easy replacement, and we didn't need to epoxy the base pieces in after all. They didn't move very far at all, so that's great. My only concern is that we're tightening down on plastic, which we're compressing, but this thing might self-loosen. There is that possibility, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, but that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you find it useful. Hope to see you next time.